So Johnathon Majors has been fired and Marvel fans have been left to wonder, now what? Johnathon Majors being fired by Marvel was undoubtedly the right move for the company, and many people believe it should have actually happened sooner. But without a doubt, these leaves a ton of questions regarding the future of the MCU. What is going to happen with Avengers Kang Dynasty? Kang for a few years now has been set up as the new MCU big bad. He's failed to kind of gain this kind of momentum and excitement that Thanos did, but the goal is to be connecting the current disjointed MCU. If it's not going to be this one solitary connective tissue through the multiverse in the multiverse saga with this multiverse character in Kang, yeah, it's complicated. Would recasting and continuing forth with the plan, if there truly is one, be an easier option? Reports have suggested both talks about moving away from Kang simply because he wasn't drawing the kind of excitement, but that they thought he would, or because of the Johnathon Majors stuff, but there's also been reports that they are just going to recast and the MCU is going to stick to the plan and they believe in that plan. If Marvel announced they are recasting Kang the Conqueror with a new actor, a few things would run through my head. I would like the idea that there's a new variant above all the others and is going to show why all of the other Kangs couldn't quite get it done. I like that. I like the fact that they'd be staying the course, that there's a course to stay on, and that it's a course they believe in. We heard a lot of things about the Marvel writer rooms demanding X amount of rewrites for countless movies like The Marvels or Doctor Strange 2 or Secret Invasion. Not a movie, but you know what I mean. And those to me are some of the more flawed projects recently, just over the recent few years, despite having some redeeming qualities in a few of them. Sticking to the course like in Loki Season 2 really paid off for that show. They didn't react, they didn't go reactionary, they didn't have tons of reshoots, they stuck to the story they wanted to tell, and it was one of the best stories they've told in years. It did include one of the best Marvel characters ever in Loki, yes, but it also included Kang, which would add a lot of rewatch value to that show and other projects with Kang if Kang only goes up as a villain from here. We know they are currently pivoting certain projects, but pivoting an entire saga would be a pretty big hurdle. Granted, Loki Season 2 did kind of wrap up the Kang story in some ways, but if Kevin Feige is still planning everything out 5 years in advance, you have to think Kang is a part of those future projects. Do they want to have to potentially change even more projects when they already are trying to rectify some of the mistakes over the last few years? It was too late for the Marvels, but it's not too late for Captain America 4. So they're reworking that. They're not just redoing the third act. They're not just going to release it with unfinished or cheap-looking visual effects like some of the other films the last few years. No, they said this isn't good enough. We have to start completely over. And that's basically what they did. They did the same thing after shooting a few episodes of Daredevil Born Again. Charlie Cox ain't getting younger, folks, but they don't care. They're trying to tell the best stories that they can now. I think Echo is hopefully going to be a sign of future things to come. It would show a confidence in the plan and story if they decided to stick with Kang, in my opinion, but I'm sure a lot of you would disagree with that, and that's totally okay. I'm not 100% sold on that idea, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's a complicated situation, to say the least. And my final argument towards recasting, the one thing that I think is truly important if they are going to recast is finding someone who is significantly more talented than Johnathon Majors, because 9 months ago or so, this guy was an up-and-coming, really sought-out-after level of an actor with ton of talent and ton of fans. So it's going to be hard to find someone that talented who's going to actually want that specific role. There's plenty of other talented actors, but one that wants to play Kang, which to some might be considered a tainted role, if you will. The other thing they could do is cast just a flat-out bigger name. A lot of people are saying Denzel Washington, Will Smith, John Boyega, a name like that. A bigger name than Johnathon Majors, who would bring in outside fans into the MCU or back to the MCU, but also start building some excitement and momentum for this character and the rest of the MCU. It's been a while since a big name has gotten people excited. Now, on the other hand, there are some pros to replacing Kang altogether and just having a slight reset. He might not be all that integral in upcoming future projects. Maybe this current era of the MCU is not salvageable and just needs to be considered the dark years and tossed aside, and moving forward, we can recast with a new character, build some new momentum like we were just talking about, but in a different way, to get people talking positively about the MCU again, because that is the end result for Marvel. Also, making good movies. That would help. But they can start by adding a character or characters that don't have the level of baggage that Kang the Conqueror currently has. It would be a fresh start, a new slate with a new Avengers 5, and most likely an altered Avengers Secret Wars, with a total new direction, and hell, with the right character, could introduce a new tone to the MCU, which could be something that would feel very refreshing from all the super silly, kind of Saturday morning cartoon stuff that we've been getting lately. Not all of their stuff, I'm not shitting on all of it, but certainly a lot of it. You could probably guess which ones I'm referencing. It also wouldn't feel like a new character has to compete against Thanos as much as Kang did. It would feel like they were competing with Kang as well as the MCU projects over the last couple of years, which I think is fair to say a lower bar. The MCU could again start to look at movies outside of the early MCU stuff and look what inspired those early MCU movies and some of the later ones to be as great as they were. Picking a new villain doesn't automatically mean that all of these things are going to happen. Of course not. But if they pick the right villain, they wouldn't have a choice if it was someone they hadn't used before or someone that was vastly different than the Titan and the Conqueror. I'm actually okay with replacing. Kang is interesting enough, but they need an exciting announcement and really an exciting project to get people in theaters. It's not how it was back in 2019. And if they want to seriously try and get back to something even remotely close to years like that or before that, it might be time to take a hard look at this multiverse saga and say, maybe this should have been a trilogy at the most instead of a whole saga. They do need something to get the general movie-going audience excited and thinking and talking about the MCU again, because the numbers show that just hasn't been the case for some of these projects. It seems like more and more of them with less and less exceptions. It's not all doom and gloom, but we could get there easily. Replacing Kang would be a fresh start, a clean slate, bring in someone really hateable, a character like Joffrey Baratheon who the audience can rally against just as a character who went viral due to how hated he was because of how vile and despicable he was. They could go that route. I don't think they've ever hit something like that with Kang. They went for something more relatable and understandable with Thanos, which is why that character works so well. They could go far, far the opposite direction to really differentiate this future era of the MCU, and that would be quite exciting. Having a villain you want to see getting eaten alive, or a villain to really push our heroes emotionally past their comfort levels and up to their breaking points, similarly how Wilson Fisk pushes Daredevil, that'd be quite different and exciting. But it would mean they'd probably need to go back to that Infinity War Endgame style of tone for a character that evil and despicable and hated to work, instead of in the comedic setting like Thor Love and Thunder and the Marvel style of tone. There's a lot of mutants, and there's a lot you could choose from, some based off of real life people, and you can do a lot of fascinating stuff with that. I know we're talking a lot about audience excitement and audience interest. Right now, gauge the level of excitement and interest for the next time we see Kang versus the first time we see Doctor Doom or the mutants. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's like this mountain-sized level of hype for Doctor Doom. But to me, I often wonder just how many people even like Kang versus it's clear to me how iconic and beloved Doctor Doom is and has been for decades. And that's just one option. If you'd like to hear 10 more options to replace Kang the Conqueror, then check out this video on your screen right here.